Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Councillor Claire Douglas and I am the leader of the council. This is executive meeting, which is one of the two main decision-making bodies in the council, and I am chair of this committee. I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon for joining us. And just so everybody is aware that once we have gone through the first 6 items of the agenda, I will move the urgent business up to the top and we will receive that then. So that is when we will look at the implementation of the ATRO item that has come under urgent business, because I know there's a number of people here that are here for that purpose. So let's go directly into the agenda then. So item number 1 is apologies. We don't have any apologies today, so that is good. Everybody is present. I seem to have lost my document now. Yeah. So declarations of interest is the next item. Can I see if anybody's got any declarations of interest? I'll just pull it up. So there are no declarations of interest either. If you just bear with me, I will open the item again on my computer. It's because I lost internet connection between upstairs and down here, and now I can't see anything. It's fine, thank you. The next item is exclusion of press and public, and that is to consider the exclusion of press and public from the meeting during consideration of the following items. That's Annex A to Agenda Item 10, and this is the report on affordable housing, and that is on the grounds that it contains information relating to financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. This information is classed as exempt under paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A to Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972. And we only need to exclude press and public for that item if we are specifically going to mention Annex A information. Can I see if anybody thinks that they will want to specifically talk about that? Okay, great, thank you. So in that case, I'm not getting any indications that anybody wants to speak on that. So we won't need to exclude press and public, which is always our preferred option. But I will say to members that if during that discussion it's felt that we are straying into that area, then I'm sure that the monitoring officer will let me know, and then we may need to move into private session, or we will need to redirect the nature of our conversation, but we can deal with that at the time. The next item is item number 4, minutes of the meeting from the 2nd of September. Can I see those in favour of approving those minutes? Thank you. Councillor Pavlovic, are you approving the minutes? Marvellous, thank you. Very good. So that is approved. Thank you for that, everybody. And then we go into item number 5, which is the public participation. And we have 8 speakers today. So I will go through them in the order that I've been given them. First of all, we have Roger Tuckett, who wants to speak on agenda item 7, a city that works for all, and that's York's all-age autism and ADHD strategy 25 to 2030. So Mr. Tuckett, you have 3 minutes. Would you like me to give you a 30-second warning so that you know that you've got a clock, so you're okay? Great. I won't give you a warning in that case, but I will tell you when 3 minutes is up, if that's okay, for the sense of fairness for everybody. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been autistic for nearly 4 years. Went for 20 years before that bipolar.
Let's start again.
Yes, start
Please.
again.
I've been autistic for nearly 4 years. 20 years before that bipolar, and before that just a mess. Undiagnosed autism has devastated my career, family connections, financial stability, my entire life. With the diagnosis, I've gained a new identity and a passion for bringing about change for others, using professional skills and experience gained prior to the collapse of my career 25 years ago. I seek full societal integration for all autistic and neurodivergent people. The population figures are stark. Life expectancy for autistic people is between 6 and 11 years lower than the rest of the population. 79% of adults who experience poor mental health, significantly higher than any other marginalised group. Up to 35% have planned or attempted suicide during their lifetime. 42% of autistic children experience anxiety, compared to 3% of non-autistic children. Educational outcomes are persistently worse, and just 3 in 10 autistic adults are in work, compared with 5 in 10 for all disabled people and 8 in 10 for non-disabled people. The City of York today joins North Yorkshire in having a new autism strategy. York's is significantly different. It is preceded by a full needs assessment. It includes ADHD. It involves lived experience in co-design and co-production, not just as an aspiration. Its focus on societal aspects is exemplary. All are to be applauded. But for now, it remains largely tactical and may lack a clear strategic pathway of how to achieve all the wider outcomes of the autistic communities and their families seek, and to fully remove health and social inequalities brought about by neurodivergence. A robust annual action plan is needed with measurable targets and accountability, which may take some strides in this direction. However, the various statutory authorities still provide a fragmented approach to support, particularly between health and social care services, with the third sector, and often with poor communication with ND communities themselves. Accordingly, I ask, will this council support a call for a leadership summit during 2026 for autism and ADHD across York and North Yorkshire, with direct participation as equal partners, not only from the various statutory bodies, there are quite a number, but also the third sector and ND communities, to explore better ways to integrating support strategies and stimulating cooperative working. I've got 10 seconds left.
Marvellous, thank you very much. And thank you for your very considered comments there. It's very helpful to hear that, and thank you for the support for the strategy. Your request for the leadership summit, we'll certainly take that away, and our Director of Public Health and Lucy, Councillor Stills-Warshaw, who is our executive member with responsibility for this area, will certainly look at your recommendations and let you know what they decide to move forward with. So thank you for that suggestion. It's very welcomed. Thank you. Number 2 on our list today is Gwen Swinburne, and she would like to talk to us about item number 13, which is the £500,000 Parks Investment Fund scheme approval. So Gwen, you have 3 minutes and you don't need me to give you a notice, do you? So please go ahead. Thank you. Is the mic on? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Chair, I am angry that King George's Field remains last on the Parks Investment Fund, even on the reserve list. This is a travesty perpetuated by Labour's fixation on securing green flag status for Hull Road Park. Our 4.5-acre site, legally dedicated in perpetuity as a memorial to King George V, is the only recreational space for residents of the Groves, Bell Farm, Doddy Avenue and Pottery Lane. The council's statutory duty to maintain it has been shamefully ignored for years. Its facilities are deplorable: 2 seats, 2 rugby posts on unplayable ground, a basketball hoop with no paths. The adjacent Arran Place play area has missing and outdated equipment, all sitting in mud that is equally neglected. Yet the council's confected scoring system ranks King George Field lowest falsely claiming it serves one ward when it supports two, and despite being entirely inaccessible, staff did not give full infrastructure points. Can you imagine when our park is entirely inaccessible from every single entrance that one of the many successful Hull Road park schemes was to upgrade a rough path? We don't even have any path, let alone a rough path. Multiple schemes got access improvements, yet King George's Field, absolutely inaccessible, is simply ignored, not even named in the council's systems. Why would staff dismissively and knowingly call the 4.5-acre recreation ground Arran Place play area? Most higher priority schemes are to renew or replace something, yet King George's Field has almost nothing, so nothing to renew or replace. Honestly, our community would beg to have a park and play space the standard of Chesney Fields, your top priority. Equally, a park as fantastic as Hull Road would be a dream come true. Yet the members levered 6 separate schemes for that park in that marginal ward, each getting 100 extra points to earn a green flag. I admit I didn't factor in that Labour would abandon what they may have thought as a safe Guildhall ward to prostrate themselves before the hope of a green flag in marginal Hull Road ward. This is a dark day for this administration and our community. Finally, on an administrative matter, I cannot see how we can consider this Christmas market item when there's no urgent notice and it arrived without an agenda item a couple of hours ago. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional about this one. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments there, and I would like to counter that the field that we've been talking about, the play area, is on the list and it is there for further consideration, and that is why it's on there. £500,000, whilst of course a significant and the largest investment in parks for many years, does not cover all that needs to be done across the city, and that field sits in our ward, Councillor Webb, doesn't it? So we very much know its value. So thank you for raising that with us, and we will continue to hope that we can invest there in the future. Thank you. Next item is, next person to speak is Councillor Stephen Fenton, who would like to speak on agenda item 10, delivering more affordable housing in York, and agenda item 12, the park and ride site improvements. You have 3 minutes. Would you like 30-second warning? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to comment on those two agenda items plus the late paper. Firstly, agenda item 10, the housing delivery programme. I welcome the work that is getting underway to develop design options for the Askham Bar former park and ride site. This site has real potential, not just for much needed affordable housing, but also for health and community facilities, with Nimbus Care already having a presence on site. The development may also provide an opportunity to look at transport infrastructure in the area, with a view to improving bus reliability and upgrading cycling, walking and wheeling routes. So can I please ask executive members and officers to work with local councillors and the wider community as this important scheme moves forward. Next, item 11, which is the park and ride paper. I'm pleased to see the bus service improvement programme funding secured by the previous administration is being invested in improving York's park and ride facilities. And I particularly welcome the proposed secure overnight parking provision at Askham Bar. I understand the logic for the 2-year contract extension, but would ask that this does not prevent discussions on changes to existing services. For example, I would welcome consideration being given to an intermediate stop being introduced on the number 3 route, so that the park and ride is a practical choice for staff working at schools, businesses and healthcare facilities in the Tadcaster Road area. Finally, the late paper on the Christmas market access arrangements. The recommendation from the Chief Constable this year is very clear, as was the advice last year from counter-terrorism officers. Residents and visitors to our city will now, not unreasonably, expect the executive to make decisions which prioritise public safety. The publication of this report 6 hours before the start of this meeting means there has been very little opportunity for proper scrutiny or for members of the public to register to speak on this important matter. I hope that Executive will acknowledge that this isn't really acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton, and your comments will certainly be taken into account at the items that you've spoken about and mentioned. Thank you very much for that. The next person we have on the list is Hilary Conroy, who would like to speak on agenda item 7, a city that works for all York's all-age autism and ADHD strategy 25 to 2030. Hilary, would you like me to give you 30? No, you're okay. So just press the button there to make sure the mic's on. I can see it is now, so please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank
3
you.
minutes, thanks.
I've been involved in work around autism and ADHD in this city for the past 4 years. During that time, I've seen firsthand the impact of the disastrous pilot scheme, which initially rejected 90% of the people who requested an assessment for autism and ADHD. It has since been permanently installed, creating a 2-tier system of those considered urgent enough for assessment and the approximately 9,000 people who are currently being held on the indefinite routine waiting list via the Do It profiler. It was in this context the work on an updated strategy began here at CYC, and while the initial health needs assessment was a bit problematic, have shown themselves to be exemplary in their ability to listen, understand, and take on board the feedback they have received. They sought out a variety of voices to ensure that the loudest or most engageable were not the only ones shaping this piece of work. I hope that others can take notes on how to do this kind of thing well, through relationships, honesty, humility, and genuine interest. Overall, I'm pleased with the results of these efforts. I believe the themes identified represent the things autistic and ADHD adults and children are facing in this city. However, I've not been as impressed with the responses by partners to these themes. While a politically engineered lack of resources is always and forever to be the barrier brought into these discussions, there are bigger questions to be asked about what is prioritised over this work and how informed or accepting those decision makers are about the needs highlighted in this strategy. I hope we can realise some of the ambitions referred to within this strategy in the next 5 years. I've already seen a shift within the Council in understanding neurodivergence, and I hope the ICB can follow suit in years to come. The new SEND strategy also provides some hope that things will be changing for our young people and their families in education as well. As a representative of York Disability Rights Forum, it would be remiss of me not to mention the formal recommendation to prevent access of blue badge holders to the city centre once again. This fear-mongering with regards to a mythical terrorist attack was indulged by the former administration, leading to 4 years of exclusion for our disabled citizens. Let's not make that mistake again. Blue badge holders should not be treated as second-class citizens. Just because of their disability, they should be not seen as disposable when the market demands. If the Christmas market is such a danger, then perhaps the Council should consider whether changes need to be made in how it is laid out and not jump to the expectation that the status quo is essential and disabled residents can be ignored for the sake of tourism. The lack of space around the market itself is already problematic for disabled people beyond the issue of blue badge parking. So perhaps this is an opportunity to rethink the whole thing and really embrace your tagline of a city that works for all. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and we'll certainly take them into consideration when we come to those items. Thank you. And the next person is Richard Kelly, who would like to speak on item 14, which is the Household Waste Recycling Centre operations. Do we have Richard Kelly? I don't think we do. No, nobody online of that name either. No, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Kelly isn't with us here today. Next person, therefore, is Helen Jones. Do we have Helen in the room?
Online.
Online. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that, Helen.
That's
so
okay.
Helen would like to speak about the York Christmas market access and the ATRO implementation of temporary anti-terrorism traffic regulation order that was under urgent business that we've now moved up the agenda. So Helen, you have 3 minutes. Would you like me to give you 30-second warning?
No, that's fine.
Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
So I'm speaking as a member of York Disability Rights Forum, and to echo what others have said, it is hard to fully respond to the agenda item given the short notice. The recommendation of closing the city centre for access for blue badge holders from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. from the 13th of November to the 21st of December essentially means that blue badge holders, that is, disabled and older people, are unable to access city centre services such as banks, opticians, and it takes away the opportunity for us to socialise with friends and family at what is supposed to be a time of the year where we gather. Christmas can already feel lonely. Excluding us from our city centre will only heighten that. As residents, we want to support the local economy. We want to do our Christmas shopping. We want to go for meals and enjoy the city centre just like everybody else does. Make It York themselves say on their website they want residents to be proud to live here. But once again, I'm embarrassed to live in a city that yet again is set to ban blue badge holders. Additionally, as touched on by a previous speaker, the market itself is not accessible. It's an overcrowding risk that is horrible to navigate as a wheelchair user. So, my question is, why is my council running an event that doesn't welcome disabled residents or tourists, especially when, in running the inaccessible event, our right to access our city centre is taken from us yet again?
Thank you, Helen. Have you finished?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Helen. Sorry for that. Yes, thank you for your comments. And I know that we will respond to those issues that you've raised during that item. But I really value the fact that you have at short notice come to tell us and your views on it today. Thank you. So the 7th person on my list is Bigby Eris Waterson.
Hello, I'm online.
Online, very good. Hello, Bigby. Bigby would like to speak to us about agenda item 16, which is the Urgent Business York Christmas Market 2025 and implementation of temporary anti-terrorism traffic regulation order. Please go ahead, Bigby. You have 3 minutes. And would you like me to give you a 30-second warning?
No, thank you.
Please go
Cheers.
ahead. Thank you.
Thanks for your time and consideration. I'd just like to add my voice to the discussion around possible temporary suspension of blue badge access and parking in the city centre during the Christmas market period. I recognise there's been a recommendation on this on behalf of public safety. However, I'd like to address some ways that myself and my peers feel it will have the opposite effect for many disabled folks. I run a support group for trans and non-binary people in the city centre. Several of my group are disabled and I myself am a disabled blue badge holder. We are often reliant on access to the city and appropriate parking with my blue badge in the provided zones in order to facilitate this group. And the suspension of blue badge use would affect my ability and their ability to access and run this group. And I'm sure that that will be the case for many other important support groups that exist in the city. As the city gets busier for Christmas, it also gets more dangerous for disabled folk. As mentioned, the overcrowding is very difficult. But people like myself who are immunocompromised, if we can't use like a private and adapted vehicles and things like that, and instead we have to look to things like buses, you know, as the buses get more and more crowded, and of course it's the season in which people get sick, you know, there's a real fear around catching something serious on overcrowded buses. Disabled people like me also get scared of and are regularly injured by the pushing and the shoving and the barging and people cutting in front of you, you know, who are very impatient at the amount of foot traffic in and around the Christmas market and surrounding businesses and shops. So having to you know, do your best without a vehicle and deal with that, it's dangerous. The hustle and bustle poses a threat to us that can be avoided by vehicle access and blue badge parking. And I would also like to say that disabled people aren't something to be tidied away when convenient, and our right to participate in society shouldn't have to be withheld in order to make way for consumerism. That's all of my comments for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Big B, for taking the time at short notice to come and tell us about your views on this subject, and they will certainly be taken into consideration on the item that we are going to hear next. We've moved it up the agenda, so if you want to listen, please go onto the live stream to do that. Thank you for joining us. So finally then, I have Chief Inspector Ryan Chapman, who also wants to speak on the same item around York Christmas Market 2025. And would you like me to give you a 30-second warning, Chief Inspector Chapman?
No, it'd be all right, thank you. I've got two statements, one from Counter-Terrorism and one from North Yorkshire Police, so I'll just highlight at the start.
Okay. Can I just ask you to move your computer so that you actually speak into the... Yeah, because otherwise people online and in the room won't be able to hear you. So you have 3 minutes, the same as everybody else, so please go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, Counter-Terrorism Police North East would like members to take account of the terrible and tragic terrorist incidents in Manchester on the 2nd of October 2025, when deliberating the issues of access to this year's Christmas market in York. Once again, the attack involved the use of a vehicle as a weapon, a low sophistication attack increasingly used by self-initiated terrorists. It is crucial to ensure that the areas of York City Centre protected by the permanent hostile vehicle mitigation measures are optimised at the time of the busy Christmas market. This means keeping the area inside the scheme sterile and accessible only to emergency response vehicles. Determined terrorists will seek to exploit any vulnerabilities to mount a successful attack. There have been numerous examples worldwide of attacks on Christmas markets and plots to attack such events over the past few years, including the last year in Germany. And from North Yorkshire Police, the Christmas market is an important seasonal event in the City of York, and North Yorkshire Police are keen to work in partnership with the City of York Council to ensure it is a success. It is important to note that the responsibility for public safety at this event sits with the event and organiser. The market attracts a high-density crowd, and the presence of vehicles in such an environment creates an obvious opportunity for a terrorist attack using vehicles as weapons. As you're aware, the City of York contains the only Tier 1 site outside of London. Following the 2024 event, there were reports that many felt that crowds were too dense and could be better managed. In recent years, we have witnessed vehicles within the HMV area that were either static or moving within the area and therefore seem to be blue-black badge holders. This creates an obvious risk to the basis that an intended terrorist could easily obtain such a pass if minded to do so. We take the view that the actual should have been in place previous years to mitigate this threat. It is factually incorrect to suggest that the Chief Constable has the power to impose an ATRO. Such an order can only be granted by the Highway Authority on the recommendation of the Chief Officer of Police. It is our understanding that a proposal to recommend a temporary ATRO to the Highways Authority was discussed at the City of York Safety Advisory Group on the 10th of September, where it received the unanimous support of all agencies present, including officers from the City of York Council. As civics leaders, it is vitally important that we all take appropriate steps to protect residents and visitors to the great city from terrorism. The events in Liverpool and Manchester illustrate the devastating impact of a vehicle driven into a dense crowd. It is therefore a proportionate and reasonable step for the Chief Constable to recommend a temporary ATRO to the City of York Council as a Highways Authority. It is a matter of the Council if they wish to accept or reject the recommendation.
Thank you for joining us today, Chief Inspector Chapman, and we will take your points into consideration under the item. Thank you very much. Right, so that is the end of public speakers today. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time and to come and be with us or join us online. So item number 6 is the forward plan. Can I see those in favour of accepting the forward plan as it is outlined there? Thank you very much. That's unanimously approved. And then we are going to move agenda item 16 up to the next item now. So we will consider the addendum that was released earlier today, as has been pointed out, which is York Christmas Market 2025 implementation of temporary anti-terrorism traffic regulation order. And we have Gary Taylor, Director of City Development, here to introduce the paper to us as outlined. Thank you. Please go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. So, just to note, the Christmas market takes 12 months to plan. So apologise for the late item, but the ATRO letter we received from the Chief Constable was on the 26th of September, so it's taken some time to work through the implications in terms of the implementation of the ATRO and also the legal requirements of the local authority as set out within the report. So the Christmas market is delivered by our Teckle company, Make It York, and in context, we're responsible, as it is a Teckle company, we're responsible for the event in that sense, and also under the duty to protect. We have a direct responsibility for the delivery of a safe event. However, we have wider duties in terms of ensuring the event is also accessible. In terms of what we've received, as set out, the inspector is correct, as in it is the Highways Authority decision on your recommendation to implement an ATRO. And in this instance, the ATRO that is recommended by the Chief Constable is in effect to put up all of our outer hostile vehicle measures and to exclude all vehicles, not just blue badge, from that zone during the period of 10 till 7 p.m. For the dates outlined. So that does include access for the likes of the post office, various deliveries to boots that we've allowed in previous years, access to our own vehicles for emergency maintenance, for bin collection and such like. So there is a wider context which is set out in the recommendation that we need more time to actually work through how we actually deliver the event in the context of that wider security measures. But in effect, there will be no vehicles in that secure zone. The context of this, whilst it is a recommendation from the Chief Constable, we've done a thorough search and we know of no other context where that recommendation hasn't been approved and implemented. We have had discussions on a national level, and there has been elemental parts that have been negotiated out up until the decision and the sign-off by the Highways Authority, but there's been no instance that we can find where this hasn't been applied. And just in that context, there are two elements that we have to pay due regard to in respect to the Chief Constable's formal recommendation and in implementing this under the relevant act is avoiding or reducing the likelihood of danger connected with terrorism and preventing or reducing damage connected with terrorism. And given that in the context of the letter, both are advising that there is a heightened risk in that respect, from an officer's perspective, the only thing that we could actually recommend is that the ATRO is applied as per recommendation 16.1, and also that during the period up until running and developing the actual management plan for the area, that we work closely as officers with the police, security agencies, and anybody else that's actively impacted as a result of this, to look at what mitigations could be put in place, and we bring a report back to yourself for that consideration.
Thank you, Gary, very much appreciated. So first of all, can I see if anybody would like to ask Gary any questions on the ATRO? Councillor Coulbain, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gary. You mentioned how you can find no record of a local authority refusing police request for an anti-terror traffic regulation order. If a local authority was to refuse such a request, what would be the implications for that authority?
It's probably one for Bryn from a legal perspective. I'll outline my position then come in, but in effect, we have a direct duty. I mean, there's a balance there. We have a duty for accessibility, we have a duty in terms of keeping people safe. They do sit line by line. However, in this instance, the safety element overrides everything else in effect. If the decision was made to continue, bear in mind there's two routes here. One could be a decision is made not to accept this and not to run the Christmas market. There's wider implications there in terms of there are contracts in place, etc., etc. The other one could be we're not going to accept the ATRO and we're going to implement the Christmas market with us running it as per the previous years. We were already working through additional security enhancements. They haven't been seen as sufficient, and bear in mind our ATRO is probably the best in the our HVM is probably the best in the country. So even if we buy what's the national asset temporary security measures, they're nowhere near as good as our HVM. So the advice here is our HVM is a much better security provision. We were looking at putting a secondary ring in, and we could still implement that. Fundamentally, it's the risk perspective that you take on that Brink can advise that, but in effect, if there was to be an incident, there would be potentially serious consequences in respect to the legal procedures because we weren't accepting this position. I'll bring Bryn in at that point, who can advise in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Chair. So if members chose to not implement the ATRO as requested, there are a number of options that remain available to the Chief Constable. There could be a judicial review of the Council's decision. More fundamentally, the Home Secretary retains the right to direct Council to implement an ATRO. So it would then take it out of all of our hands completely, and we would simply be directed to implement that. Perhaps more fundamentally, though, as Gary has alluded to, in the event that there was an incident and the Council had chosen to decline to make the ATRO following the formal recommendation from the Chief Constable, that would doubtless play a significant role in any consideration of potential corporate manslaughter charges by the CPS, because in these cases they would also be informed by counter-terrorism and the Anti-Terrorism Unit. So there is a very real danger should such an incident occur, and we all absolutely hope that one never does, that corporate manslaughter charges could then be pursued because members have received the professional advice from counter-terrorism and from North Yorkshire Police and have chosen to disregard that.
Thank you for that, Bryn. Councillor Eyre, you had a question for Gary.
Thank you, Chair. Yep. You said in your introduction that this letter came from 26th of the 9th, and that's what kickstarted everything as if it sort of came from the blue. One of the other public speakers actually said that there was a meeting on the 10th of September, at which point all of this was discussed and agreed. I think he actually said with officers this had been agreed. I'm not sure how, we got to September in the first place, but how there was a meeting with officers and the police on the 10th of September, which agreed this decision. And then somehow the letter came 16 days later and we were surprised and shocked and had to act.
So for you, Chair, so the meeting on the 10th, I'm assuming was the event advisory group. So I wasn't at that specific event. Yeah. So that's an advisory group. So that takes, on all events, it advises in terms of what best approach is. And it's wholly focused on ensuring the event is as secure and safe as possible. Looking at the event management plan, the risk plan, so Make It York, etc., would have presented that. That isn't an actual letter from the Chief Constable. It's not actually a Chief Constable decision at that point. There was various dialogue and there's taking place around was there going to be this request coming in. So there was some knowledge of that potentially coming in. It wasn't until the 26th that we received this specific. So bear in mind, up until then, we were working through, as per last year, a separate report that looked at a number of different options. And one of those options, as I outlined, was a secondary, a heightened secondary defence. So greater than last year, that would still allow some of the accessibility. There's been other work undertaken, particularly working with Make It York to make the event more accessible, thinning out the number of units to also manage some of the crowd elements. So we were working all of that through, but it wasn't until the 26th that this was actually received, and then we had to effectively change the recommendation, because in the context of this, there's no longer any other recommendation in that sense.
Thank you, Gary, for that. And I would just like to see who would like to speak on the item now as well, who'd like to. Okay, thank you. So I've got Councillor Lomas and I'm just going to list you, Councillor Eyre and Councillor Kilbane. I'm going to start first and then Councillor Eyre if you'd like to come in after me. So I'd first of all like to thank all of our officers and the Chief Constable and North Yorkshire Police for all of the work that has gone into this. I have to say that, you know, we end up in this situation, which none of us would, I believe, like to be having to consider this, because of we're almost a victim of our own success in York at Christmas, and many people, hundreds of thousands of people come to our city in that period to come and enjoy the Christmas market and our city, our fantastic city, which I know that many people benefit from. And there is no doubt that over this, it has business, it is difficult. We can control the people coming on the train or in their cars to come and join that, to actually make sure that the space for everybody. So it's a constant balance of trying to find a way of making it work that keeps everybody safe. And then, of course, as we know, there have been increased terrorist attacks, as has been outlined, that are less and less sophisticated over the years, that have happened and targeted Christmas markets. And so this really does make the whole Christmas market very difficult to manage for everybody, and I really mean that in the broadest sense. That's Make It York, it's the Safety Advisory Group, it's Gary Taylor and his teams, and it's North Yorkshire Police and Counter-Terrorism teams as well. And everybody does work very closely together to make this as safe as possible. But it does concern me that because of this success, we get to a point where there are certain elements of our population who feel that that city centre is not for them at that point of time. And we've heard our residents outline that to us tonight, whether that's because of crowded streets or because of the inability to take a vehicle in which they rely upon for travel. But I have to say that, you know, I fully appreciate the police's position. The Chief Constable's letter was very clear. The ability for us to do anything other than accept his recommendation, just in my view, does not exist. It would be the wrong thing to do. So I am recommending that we accept and agree the ATRO this evening, but this does mean that all vehicle movements at this point in time, therefore, as the ATRO stands, would be prohibited through the HVM. But as Gary has outlined and the paper outlines, there are vehicles that have historically, for a number of years, gone through any barriers that were there previously, or the HVM now, that do important work during that period, whether that's delivery of opioid drugs to our care homes, or it's waste removal, or it's access of blue badge holders in order to enjoy our city through that 6-week period. And it is a long time. I cannot deny that. It is a long time. This all needs to be considered. So today, our decision is to be made on implementation of the ATRO in its purest sense, and then we will need to go away and ask our officers to think about these groups of vehicles that do need to be considered and how we can mitigate for this impact for them. If there is another way of doing the work that they carry out, or if there is a way that we can enable some form of access for blue badge holders into the city centre, and we will need to consider that at a further meeting. So that's why there are two recommendations today. Today is about the ATRO, and then the second layer of decision making will be what happens to those vehicles who we need to do a task or need access into the city centre, and they will need to be considered too. An ongoing concern of mine around the Christmas market is the fact that there has not been a coordinated approach to sweeping the area inside the HVM once they close and making sure that all vehicles are out. And I believe strongly that that is a joint responsibility between the council and police, so that we can move those vehicles out, because static vehicles with no drivers in them inside HVM, that is not good, I don't think, from anybody's perspective, and that must be sorted out. And then also, we've also heard from our residents that if there are events in our city at certain times of the year that cannot be made fully accessible to everybody, then we need to consider, are they the right things to do in our city? And I think we really do need to take that very seriously. Of course, the Christmas market is a huge economic benefit to York. It brings a lot of visitors. A lot of people from our city itself and from the surrounding areas really enjoy it. Christmas is a fantastic place to a period of time to be in York, and we must take that into consideration. But it is not good enough that part of our city cannot enjoy that or access the base level of services that they rely upon in the city centre, such as banks, the dentist, socialising, going to the cinema, whatever it may be. So I am very committed to the fact that we are going to look at that. But we are where we are this year. And so my recommendation to executive is that we accept the ATRO, and we also consider a full assessment of the risk and risk mitigation for those groups of vehicles that I've already outlined. So on that basis, Councillor Eyre, would you like to speak as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start by saying I remain unconvinced that this decision is lawful. This item was withdrawn, officially withdrawn, on the 30th of September. It was reinstated on the 1st of the 10th, 1804, less than 3 clear days before this meeting. If we follow the timeline, the letter from the Chief Constable was received on the 26th of September. 3 days later, this item was withdrawn, only to be reinstated 2 days later, and then we received a paper literally this morning. This is not remotely democratic. I do commend the 2 public speakers who were able to turn up and notice that this was even happening and make their views known, and also the public speakers who managed to shoehorn into their comments on other items the issues that they want to raise on this. In terms of the item itself and the time we've had to look at it, the Liberal Democrat group has been consistent in their view that the council should follow the advice of counter-terrorism experts to keep both our residents and our visitors safe. This administration has consistently taken the view that this was merely advice and that they would disregard it when they saw fit. The correspondence from the Chief Constable is stark. There is currently permanent HVMR bollards in York City Centre which could mitigate the risk of a vehicle attack by terrorists. However, there are currently considerations of exemptions to this restricted access. The HVM the council already has put in place is adequate if used as it was intended. Any exemptions to these measures, as highlighted above, would increase the risk and vulnerability to an attack. Determined attackers will seek to exploit any weaknesses to gain access to the protected area through the 2 exemptions City of York Council are considering. This advice has always been consistent. It's the same advice we had last time. It has never changed. Nothing has changed. The attacks globally were happening at the same time. It seems that the administration's refusal to follow this advice has forced the police to step in. Now, I agree, and I've been here and I've been on that side of the table. This is not an easy decision. Nobody wants to stop anybody from being able to access the city centre. Nobody ever wanted to. It is not and never should have been politicised. It is literally a matter of life and death, and we continue to believe that council decisions should be led by expert advice. On the issues of the Christmas market and the location, I would also, on a completely separate thing, say I do fully agree that there are possibly better locations for the Christmas market. One of the issues around the Christmas market is Parliament Street. That's why previous administrations have looked at creating spaces elsewhere in the city, Castle Car Park as a specific example, to provide alternative spaces with better access and better opportunity to hold situations such as this. And I would urge the executive, when they make decisions on that location, to realise that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build a safe space to hold events like this that will not restrict people from accessing the city centre and all the issues we face here today. As a final point, I have to say it is simply not acceptable that due to this administration's failure to deal with this problem correctly, with 12 months' notice, we had the same conversation 12 months ago and were told that it was a short notice issue, but will be fixed this time around. 12 months. And we are in a situation with an item withdrawn in September, reinstated 2 days later. People who are actually the most affected by this decision had absolutely no opportunity to come here and speak today, unless they were able to. I commend both of those two people who somehow picked up this report
now, please,
this morning. Most people who probably would have spoken on this when they saw the item was withdrawn would have not registered to speak. And we're not able to call it in because we do not have the notice. It's an urgent decision and we didn't have the 5 days notice beforehand to call it in to allow those people to be able to speak. You have singularly stopped anyone speaking.
Councillor Bryn, would you like to come back on the legal perspective? Thank you.
By all means, Chair. So I believe that what Councillor Eyre is referring to is the requirements under the 2012 Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information Regulations. Those, of course, only apply to key decisions. And as members will note from both the forward plan and from the report itself, this is not a key decision, and therefore the regulations do not apply and have never applied to non-key decisions. Equally, in terms of the publication of the report at such a late time, it is obviously not desirable, but it is, however, lawful. We have gone through the necessary process to include this on the agenda as an urgent item. The legislation requires that if a report is to be presented, and again, there's no requirement for a physical report, but if a report is to be presented, then that report must be available to the public as soon as it is available to members, and that has been followed. So due process has been followed, not necessarily ideally, but due process has been followed.
Thank you for that. Councillor Corbane, would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I think it's only right to start off by saying that this is a pretty sad moment. I think we need to remember that we're in this position because there are people out there that will attack gatherings of people. I understand why the Chief Constable has come to the position that he has come to. I think it is fair to say while I'm loath to take lessons from a party that is happy to ban disabled people from the city centre 365 days a year, I will agree with Councillor that the advice has indeed not changed. It was the advice that we based our decision upon last year, and we ran a perfectly safe Christmas market, as we have ran perfectly safe access to the city centre for blue badge holders for the past 2 years. We have demonstrated how wrong the previous decision by the previous executive was in practice. However, what has changed is that we have been issued with this anti-terror traffic regulation order, which you heard from Gary Taylor, the officer. We cannot ignore and we must take on board. I apologise to everybody for the late notice that has been received as to this decision. I don't think I'm giving away any confidence as to say one of the reasons for that was that we were in discussions until late last week to see if there was any other way that we could make sure that the Christmas market was safe and that people, all our residents and visitors could access it. From the Chief Constable's perspective, there was a necessity for the ATRO. Well, we were trying till the last minute really to find other ways of doing this, but that was not possible. However, from this point onwards, also part of the recommendations is that we will continue to seek mitigations that will allow access for people to enjoy the Christmas market, and we will pull out all of the stops to try and make sure that that happens. If it is the case that we cannot find a way of allowing all of our residents and visitors to come and enjoy the Christmas market, then we have to say the future of that market is in doubt. How can any administration put on an event that excludes some of its residents and visitors? That's simply not an acceptable position to be in. One that this year, due to the force majeure that we find ourselves under, we may have to live with, hopefully not. But in the future, I do not see a way how we or any administration can justify putting on events that exclude our residents. And that is definitely something that we will have to look at. And finally, I think this does throw up serious human rights issues. Now, we're not human rights experts. The police aren't human rights experts, but human rights are certainly being imposed upon here. The Christmas market, of course, is not the only busy event that we have in towns. We have busy events all through the year. We have busy bridges. We have gatherings of people, and actually gatherings of people and people getting together are great. How far are we going to go in stopping people gathering together because of the fear of a terrorist threat? In many ways, once we start to do these things, in many ways, the terrorists have won, and that is not a place that we can be.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. And Councillor Lomas, thank you.
Thank you. Access for blue badge holders is what we've been discussing mostly this evening. And it's not just about access to the Christmas market, and several of our public speakers mentioned it. It's also about access to the city centre and all of its shops, services, leisure and entertainment opportunities. We heard this from the public speakers tonight. We've heard it at previous meetings where we and previous administrations have discussed city centre access. We cannot continue to exclude blue badge holders from their city for long stretches of time during the year. We need to ensure that we preserve access for as many people for as long as possible for the maximum amount of time during the year. When we've considered this in previous years, when we considered it when we took control of the council and achieved our pledge to reverse the blue badge ban, when we considered it last year when we were given the counter-terror advice around the Christmas market, we understood that this was a consideration of a balance of human rights, and that is always difficult. In the past, we have allowed blue badge holders access to address this balance, and it was done with great consideration of the issues relating to both the right to life and the right to non-discrimination. During those moments, during our considerations, we noted the views of the Centre for Applied Human Rights, which we are lucky enough to have at one of our wonderful universities in the city, and also others who have expertise in this area in the city, that of course the right to life is potentially at risk from crime and terror, but not allowing blue badge holders into the foot streets will exclude some from accessing shops, services and entertainment in the city centre, and that would be discrimination and breach their right to non-discrimination. Of course, we also understood that there are times when discrimination can be justified in law. But even when it is justified, we must find ways to mitigate the discrimination and the harm it causes. Those were the things we have kept in mind throughout the discussions on these issues. Now, however, as we've heard, we are in a position where the Chief Constable has intervened and given us advice and a recommendation, and we need to take his recommendation seriously and give his safety concerns considerable weight, along with the related advice of our officers. What we have to do now, however, is to find ways to mitigate the serious impact on different users as described and detailed in the report. The detail of that mitigation needs to be worked through, and there simply is not enough time between the receipt of that letter and this meeting tonight to work through all of the different options, to consult, to get proper advice on all of it, so that we can make good decisions about what mitigation might be effective. This has to also include finding ways to reduce the number of people who are excluded from our city centre during Christmas markets and other events, both this year and in the future. For the future, we must ensure that we and anyone else involved in putting on events in our city consider safe access for all in every area of our city and throughout every event that happens. Accessibility for all needs to be the primary consideration alongside safety when designing events and when deciding what balance we give to the competing human rights that we've discussed this evening. I'm personally devastated that we're in the position that we are in this evening, but we have to make tough decisions. That's our job. That's what we're elected to do. All we can do now is commit to finding the best mitigations we can for the most amount of people that we can, and that in future, all our events will include access for all.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. And following, I'm sure you'll agree, those very detailed thoughts and powerful arguments, I draw everybody's attention to the recommendations that are on page 9 at paragraph 16. And it says, in light of the recommendation of the Chief Constable of North Yorkshire Police, that a temporary ATRO be made covering the whole HVM protected area for the full hours of operation of the Christmas market on the basis of facilitating the safety of those attending the event. Executive is recommended to agree to make the ATRO on the recommendation of the Chief Constable, as advised by National Vehicle Threat Mitigation Unit, Counter-Terrorism Security Advisors and National Protective Security Authority, and to consider a full assessment, including need, risk and risk mitigation assessment of the various forms of vehicular access historically permitted to the Foot Streets area during the Christmas markets, to be presented to Executive at the earliest opportunity, so arrangements are in place for the opening of York's Christmas Market 2025. And I recommend that we agree to those recommendations. Can I see those who are in favour, please? Thank you. So those are approved unanimously. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of that item, and we move back to and thank you for joining us on that, Gary, as well. So we move back to the agenda, and so we will now go to what's labelled as item number 7 on the agenda, which is a city that works for all York's all-age autism and ADHD strategy 2025 to 2030. And we have Peter Roderick here, who's Director of Public Health at CYC. And sorry, could you introduce yourself, please? Or we've not met. if you could put the mic on, just introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Jodie Farquharson. I'm Head of Public Health, Healthy Child Service, and I've been working on the strategy.
What was your first name?
Jodie.
Jodie, sorry, Jodie. Welcome this evening to Executive. So, Peter, Jodie, who's going to start? Peter, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair, and evening, everyone. First of all, we'll start by thanking our public speakers on this item, and the autism and ADHD strategy that we're talking about this evening is the culmination of more than a year's work, really, and it's great to have had a couple of people here talking about it. They've been involved, and there have been quite a few others as well. Real credit to lots of people, lots of work that has gone into this particular document, and we have tried to take an approach which is based on sort of principles of co-production and trying to have lots of conversations with as many people as possible. There are certainly a large number of people in our city who have ADHD or autistic people who are neurodiverse who wanted to feed into this, and we try to listen to as many voices as possible. We started the process of writing this strategy to try and understand what life and health looks like if you are autistic or have ADHD in York, and try and paint that a bit of that picture. The broad summary is, in many ways, often not that great. People who are autistic or ADHD are often sitting on quite long waiting lists for support. They have, on average, lower life expectancy. There are higher levels of things like homelessness and addictions in this community. And there's really quite an apparent differential experience as well, particularly when it comes to getting a diagnosis between men and women and girls. I think the paper at one point refers to females, but we want to make clear that probably the right language there is women and girls. So there's a real need there when it comes to people's health. And a really clear need, which isn't just about health services, though that is really important, but actually about the whole of society. So with that in mind, we worked with lots of partners from health, from various different parts of the council, and from education. And you'll see in the strategy that essentially there is a number of we heard statements, things that people told us that they wanted to see. And then what we've done with our partners is to respond to those with some commitments, some what we're calling our we will statements. And that falls into broadly three sections. We're proposing that in order to create that city that is inclusive, that works for all, the first priority we needed to have was changing society around inclusion. So essentially removing the barriers to participation in society for autistic people and those with ADHD in our public spaces, in our businesses, that sort of thing. The second is around diagnosis and assessment. That whole pathway and journey is particularly difficult, and what we can do to improve it. And then the third is around the support that we're able to give. We wanted to make sure in the strategy, and we hope the language and the way we've sort of formatted and phrased it is really clear, that we wanted that to be a very honest offer and transparent, not promising more than we can deliver, because I think there's certainly an issue with the resource that we have available as partners in order to deliver strategies like this, and very much to align with actually the item that members are about to receive next, which is the inclusion and belonging strategy. This is an all-age strategy which covers two particular things, autism and ADHD. Your next item is going to speak just to 0 to 25s and is going to talk about all aspects of special educational needs and disabilities. Jodie's very quickly just going to cover a little bit of some of the co-production, but then I guess what happens next after this particular strategy is published.
Thank you. So it's set out in the strategy more detail of the sort of the work we did around listening and the co-production, but just to give you a bit of a summary of that, as Peter mentioned, we started off early on, well, it's a year ago almost now, going out to partnerships and speaking to individuals to start to form up the we heards. The next step after that was working with our partners through our steering group as well. We went through a process where we invited some members of lived experience to join us, and they added a huge amount of insight to that steering group. And that helped us over the course of a few months to start to form up with our partners what those commitments could look like. And then the next step was to consult on that strategy. So we did some in-person co-production sessions. We did a public online survey, and we had a really good response to that, which helped us further shape. So we did some more work at the tail end of summer to go back out to parents and say, actually, we've not got these parts quite right. We've heard something new quite often. Let's see what we can do about that. So people who have seen the previous versions will see that we've made some changes along the way. And I'd really like to take the opportunity to just thank everyone that has contributed to the strategy. And we had a really big response through that public survey, and certainly our partners that have been working closely with us on this have been really responsive to those changes along the way. And I think just in the spirit of listening and understanding and trying to learn, we want to take that forward into sort of the action phase, and just make sure that we've still got that feed in from people with lived experience throughout that process. I think that's all I really wanted to share. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Peter and Jodie. And it was really great to hear the public speakers as well, who highlighted the excellent methodology that you followed, and the co-production work was really valued, and that came through very strongly. So we did have a request for an annual action plan to see how we progress with the strategy, but also a leadership summit across York and North Yorkshire. And I did say to the public speaker, Mr. Tuckett, who was still with us, that you would consider that. So I'm sure we can respond in due course. So Councillor Steels-Warshaw, would you like to say anything on this? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying a really big thank you to officers, people with lived experience, academics, parents, carers who've helped create this strategy, and also a really big thank you to Roger and Hilary who've been to speak today. I think I was really struck by something Hilary said, which is it's not just about listening to the loudest voices in the room, which is really tricky sometimes not to do, and make sure that everyone's included. So this strategy, A City That Works for All, is not about waiting lists or referral pathways. It's about embedding a new standard of inclusion across York. It's a culture change. It's about recognising that neurodivergent people are a significant and valued part of our population. This strategy recognises that neurodivergent people have historically faced stigma, discrimination, particularly in education and in health. And it makes a clear commitment that adjustments must be made based on a need, not a diagnosis. This principle is embedded across the three priorities, which is changing society for inclusion, making diagnosis and assessment work, and improving support in every setting. It reflects the Council adopted social model of disability and aligns with the Equality Act 2010. And affirms that barriers are created by systems, not individuals. This is an all-age strategy. It consists of the lifelong journey of autistic people and those with ADHD, and it acknowledges the role of their families, the intersection of neurodivergence and gender, and the need for inclusive environments from childhood through to adulthood. This strategy has been shaped by lived experience. The steering group includes members recruited specifically for their personal insight, not their organisational affiliation. Healthwatch York's extensive engagement has been instrumental, and we've worked with academic partners, including Laura Fox from the University of York's Neurodiversity Research Unit, to ensure it's evidence-informed and locally relevant. It sets out the clear we heard and we will commitments, and these are not abstract goals, they're actionable pledges with lots of examples, but not even exhaustive, that we will evaluate places for sensory accessibility and reasonable adjustments promoted and implementation with employers, and not just around diagnosis, around people and their needs. And post-diagnostic support will be strengthened and peer-led initiatives will be developed. This whole city approach with schools, healthcare providers, employers, transport services, housing, Whatever services, we want to see alignment with the strategy's principle. The reference group will continue to grow and challenge us, ensuring that lived experience remains central to our progress while continuing to recognise that everyone's experience is personal. In a city, we must ensure that this strategy is not just published, it needs to be embedded, and it must inform the decisions we make and become part of our city's identity. We've made this commitment and we're ready to get on delivering it.
Thank you, Councillor Steels. Bullshaw. Councillor A, would you like to say anything on this? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very briefly, we always spoke about mental health as being one of the Cinderella services, but neurodiversity has sort of went along that parallel. It's another area that's been consistently ignored and not properly given the dues it takes. That's the last 10, 15 years has escalated massively. I think that is coming up on the agenda now. I think, as with mental health and other things, we are actually at a turning point where there's a very risk that we start to go back the other way. And I think it's incumbent on us all to keep pressing that agenda going forward. And some very disturbing comments internationally, especially, on the subject that we need to rebut. There are too many people waiting for support. I think we also know a lot of those children will have been 30, 40 years ago will have been completely written off as troublesome or problematic, rather than actually giving the support they need and actually identifying children and making sure they get the support will deliver fantastic outcomes for it. The paper is start 1,560 people waiting for assessment, 2,000 referrals not yet triaged, but you're right, it's not about counting numbers on a waiting list. It's about finding those people as early as possible, giving them the support they need to enable them to be able to achieve that. And I think that's why I sort of reflect. I'm not sure whether it's a blast from the past or a sign of my old age. I first met Roger 16, 17 years ago when he was chairing the mental health forum in Hambleton and Richmond, and I used to go and see him once a month at a fantastic service user forum that was there. That clearly 13 years predated his own diagnosis of autism. So it just shows the importance of identifying things as quickly as possible to give him the level of support that he possibly could have had 20, 15 years sooner if we'd have been able to get those things. So the strategy is crucially important and 100% support it.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. So on that note, I bring everybody's note to the recommendations on page 25 at paragraph 10. And it says the executive are asked to approve York's all-age autism and ADHD strategy 25 to 2030, a city that works for all. Can I see those in favour of approving? Marvellous, unanimous. Thank you. That's approved. And let's see it implemented now. Thank you very much. Next item number 8 is listed on the agenda is Inclusion and Belonging, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities and Alternative Provision Strategy 2025 to 2030. And we have Maxine Squire and Victoria Coyle and Martin Kelly here to introduce this to us. So thank you all for joining us this evening. And who is going to start? Martin, please go ahead. Thank you.
Just say a few brief words. Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really important moment for us tonight, I think, to see two strategies that talk about inclusion and belonging for children with special educational needs. It's a really proud moment, I think, for the city that we don't just look at inclusion. We're absolutely committed to children's feel of and sense of belonging in place and within the city. I'm not going to talk to the strategy. I'll leave that for colleagues to do, but I think, again, this is a piece of work that's being co-produced with children and with families, as is the strategy that we've just heard about. So really good moment and really pleased that we can be thinking about the future for children in the city.
Thank you, Martin. Victoria, are you going next? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So real focus on inclusion and belonging in terms of the way we're using our language for our city. This strategy is a partnership strategy. It covers from 0 to 25. That's for all of our children, and absolutely aligns with the autism and ADHD strategy. So coming together. So the things that we need to deliver in that strategy will be held to account by the governance in this strategy as well. So it aligns with a number of existing strategies as well. We've gone to have extensive consultation, building upon the information we got from the autism and ADHD strategy, alongside lots and lots of different other areas. We had extensive parent carer groups, surveys, task and finish groups, so that we felt that we understood and took into account everyone's views, and that shaped the strategy. It's written in a time of anticipation keenly of the SEND reforms and a white paper. So this comes at a time more than ever that we need to adopt our own direction, and we are focusing on the things that we know will make a difference. So those are the things we know already are being tried and tested in this area, and it's built from a point of strength as well for York. So we are talking about the priorities that families want. So that's about voice and visibility. So that's building our services around our children and our families. And it's about identifying children's needs at the right time across our partnership. It's looking at inclusive mainstream schools and settings and having our focus there, looking at how we're getting our children ready to be adults. And so that's why we are confident that it's the right things to focus on. We're flexible too, though. If things change radically, the strategy can flex to that as well. The governance has been looked at as well. So everything to have pace behind delivery on this is through the SEND and Alternative Provision Partnership Board. And that will be monitoring the progress of both the elements within the ADHD and autism strategy and the inclusion and belonging strategy.
Thank you, Victoria. And I should have welcomed you. This is your first visit to executive in your role. I think I'm doing quite well. I've read your title from Head of Integrated SEND. There we go. I can read at that distance, but I can't read up here. Thank you very much for that. It's fantastic to hear about. Maxine, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just briefly, Chair. This strategy obviously is a companion piece to the All Age Autism and ADHD strategy. Both strategies are very much set in a piece that looks at the culture in which inclusion and belonging is actually grounded and made real. So alongside this strategy is, as Victoria said, the really important bit of this is the actions that flow from it, and the way in which those actions will be delivered, and also the partnership, the SEND partnership, held to account by the SEND and Alternative Provision Partnership Board. But ultimately, the only way that it will demonstrate its worth is when the voice of children, young people and their families in the city actually tell us that it's made the difference that we are all ambitious to make. Our desire is that when we are looking at the evidence of that voice, that what we are hearing is that both of these strategies have impacted on the lived experience of children, young people and their families in the city. And that's when we know that these documents have made a difference.
Thank you, Maxine. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's really important. We know this is an area that parents don't feel as though society is delivering enough for them. So it's hugely important that we get it right where we can in York, and I'm really glad to see this come through. So can I see those who'd like to speak on this item as well? Then please, Councillor A, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, welcome this new inclusion and belonging strategy for York and the work officers and everyone has done. It shows an ambition to bring local partners, schools, health professionals, parents and carers together around the idea that every child in our city should feel safe, valued and able to thrive. But as strong as this local plan is, York cannot fix a national crisis alone. Across the country, the SEND system is broken. Families are battling for assessments, councils are drowning in deficit, and children are being failed by a patchwork of support that depends far too much on where they happen to live. That's why our Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, has written to the Prime Minister calling for a root and branch national reform that puts children and families first, boosts specialist capacity, supports councils properly, and tackles the unacceptable waiting times that so many families face. I ask you as Labour Council Executive to join with us to ask your government to deliver the reform that parents have been promised for far too long. We're ready to work with you together to make sure that national reform matches the ambition of this local strategy, which is a system where every child gets the right support in the right place at the right time, and not after years of fighting for it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Webb, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. And firstly, thank you to all the work that officers have done. I think this is a huge step forward. Councillor Eyre, it's nice to hear that Ed Davies not just like Morris dancing or something. It's a real positive step for him. I think to start with, I'm not going to speak for very long, but this is an inclusion and belonging, special educational needs and disabilities and alternative provision strategy. The title has got longer as we've gone along, but it is very important and very specific. Those words, inclusion and belonging, are the direction of travel for what we need to see in this country. And, you know, Councillor Eyre for once was quite right in saying something. Parents, carers, professionals tell me on a regular basis that the SEND system nationally isn't working. We know that. And as was alluded to, there's a white paper on its way that we hope will help make a difference. It won't fix everything overnight. Such a system is not built for that, okay? And we will make changes incrementally. However, in York, we're at the front of that. We're moving forward positively. You only just have to look at things like the recent SEND Central that opened, the SEND Hub that we have opened to be our public face of support services in this city. That is something that isn't done elsewhere. That's done here in York, and we're really, really proud of that. And again, the work that officers have put in is huge. The work that partners have put in particular in that example, is huge and is fantastic. Finally, I think that this really is an implication of why we're at the forefront of a modern, inclusive education system. Are we there yet? Of course we're not. Do we need to do more? Absolutely, which is why we need things like this to get us going and to really bring everyone together. I'm so proud that for the first time, our school system is talking really, really positively and openly about inclusion. That is a big step forward from where we've been in the past. Finally, written throughout all of this document is co-production. I want to send a sort of personal thanks to Jenny from the Parent Carer Forum and the other members of the Parent Carer Forum who've really, really contributed to this, to really demonstrate their sort of lived experience of often fighting a difficult system. For the young people who've also been supporting with the writing of this piece of work. It's a great piece of work. Let's get on and do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. So on that, we'll go to page 100 where the recommendations are, and they're at paragraph 14 and 15. It says the Executive Board is asked to consider and approve the contents of the inclusion and belonging, special educational needs and an alternative provision strategy 2025 to 30. Can I see those who are in favour of approving that? Very good. Right, so we have unanimous approval, and let's go forward and implement then. Marvellous, thank you. And just as a note that we've been going for an hour and a half now, everybody, so let's take a short break, and if you can come back at 5 past. Right, everybody, should we get started again? Thank you. Right, okay, everybody, shall we start? Thank you very much. So next item on the agenda is Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan, and we have John Roberts and Alison Cook here to talk us through that, and it would be quite helpful if we could do this quite quickly, if you don't mind, please, everybody. Can I say that too? Sorry, I really appreciate all the hard work, of course, you know I do, but it would be good if we could pick the pace up a little bit now. Thank you very much. Off you go then, John. You look like you're poised to start speaking. Please go ahead.
I'll pass on to Alison later. So just to outline, this report presents conclusions of the Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan examination in the examiner's report, which is Annex B to this report, and recommends the executive to endorse the examiner's recommendations to enable the neighbourhood plan to proceed to referendum set out in decisions statements Annex C. The Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan is a significant amount of work and engagement between Copmanthorpe Parish Council, the Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan Group, the community of Copmanthorpe and the City of York Council over many years. The Neighbourhood Plan was submitted to Council on 29th of January this year, and the consultation took place between 26th of March and 14th of May this year. After the consultation, Andrew Ashcroft was appointed as the examiner. Annex B to the report sets out the examiner's report, and he concludes that subject to modifications proposed, the plan meets basic conditions and should proceed to referendum. Officers have been through the report and recommendations and set out the decision statement in Annex C. Should members decide to endorse the conclusions of the examiner's report, the Council must organise a referendum on the neighbourhood plan. This ensures that the community has a final say in whether the plan comes into force or not. The regulations require that the referendum is held within 56 days from the date of this executive. The date has been provisionally set to the referendum of 27th of November. If 50% or more of the votes cast in favour of yes, the neighbourhood plan, then the plan becomes the party development plan for York, and the council must then ratify it within 8 weeks of the referendum. The recommendation set out in paragraph 20 of the report. I'll pass through now to Alison, who will just go a brief update as well.
We've brought before you several neighbourhood plans previously, and so I just wanted to draw your attention to a new recommendation that we're bringing forward in this report, which is recommendation 4, which relates to delegated officer decision following a successful referendum whereby over 50% of the vote was in favour of that referendum. That's to reflect that there is no key decision following the referendum. It's the referendum itself that brings into force that plan. So we hope that that recommendation aligns in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, John. And it is absolutely great to see these continue to come forward, and all the work that has been taken place in the parish council particularly, and with you and your teams. And I'm surprised we've got no Copmanthorpe parish councillors here tonight to tell us how marvellous this all is, but there you go. Would anybody like to speak? Councillor Pavlovic, please go ahead.
Thank you. As you say, Chair, we've had several of these recently, and as usual, I do want to commend the people that have been involved over a number of years from the area, including the parish council, but also the neighbourhood plan team that aren't necessarily parish councillors. Thank all the officers as well. We don't really have any options on this, so the recommendations as outlined on page 131, yes, I recommend that we accept them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pavlovic. So in that case then at page 131, we have paragraph 20, and there are a few recommendations here, so bear with me. One is that we agree the examiner's modifications set out at Annex C to the submission draft Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan, and that inclusive of these modifications, the Neighbourhood Plan meets the basic conditions and other legislative requirements. 2, agrees that the submission draft Copmanthorpe Neighbourhood Plan as amended proceeds to a local referendum based on the neighbourhood area as noted in the examiner's report. 3, approves the decision statement attached to Annex C to be published on the City of York Council's website. And then 4, as Alison outlined, agrees that delegated authority is given to the Director of City Development to approve and publish a decision statement in accordance with the statutory requirements. A, should the outcome of the local referendum be in favour of adopting the neighbourhood plan and the Copmanthorpe neighbourhood plan can be formally made, or B, should the outcome of the local referendum not be in favour of adopting the neighbourhood plan and the Copmanthorpe neighbourhood plan is formally rejected and the plan cannot be made. Goodness gracious. That was a lot to concentrate on, but basically that says that the Director of City Development can approve and publish a decision statement no matter the outcome of the referendum. Right, so can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations, please? So those are approved unanimously, and I should note for the minutes, Guy, that Councillor Webb had to leave at the break, and he gives his apologies. Thank you for that. Right, thank you very much, Alison and John, really appreciate it, and continue doing all the amazing work that you are. Thank you. Item number 10 then, and this is a real passion of mine and of Councillor Pavlovic's and perhaps everybody in the room, delivering more affordable housing in York, update on the housing delivery programme. So we have Sophie Round here with us and Pauline Stutchfield, and who is going to start? Pauline, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll introduce and Sophie will answer any detailed questions. The paper in front of you seeks to use the security of the national position on house building to support the delivery of new affordable homes throughout York, building a strong pipeline to seize the opportunities that available funding presents. The Council plays a leading role in both direct delivery of affordable homes through its established housing delivery programme, which is outlined here, as well as working with registered provider partners to increase capacity and maximise delivery. This report presents an update on the work carried out by the Housing Delivery Programme team to date and seeks to support to continue this work to deliver additional affordable housing sites and develop an ongoing pipeline of new build housing sites. And I think that's what's significant about this report, is that pipeline over the next few years. So specifically, this report covers establishing a construction budget and entering a build contract to deliver 101 homes at Ordnance Lane as an 100% affordable site and associated set of constituent decisions. It seeks authorisation to procure a development partner for Willow House and the Lowfield A site, with a full business case to be presented to Executive later. Note the progress of the Warmgate improvement proposals and approve requests for delegated authorities to allocate Neighbourhood Improvement Programme funding towards this and other such projects. Develop a new build pipeline with a budget to commence design work on former Manor School and submit a planning application. And note the grant funding bids to York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority Brownfield Fund for a range of sites. I would like to specifically thank officers and particularly Sophie, who's going to be leaving us soon, sadly, for the considerable work going on around housing development, not only in relation to the pipeline of sites in this report, but in relation to existing sites. such as those coming to completion, such as Burnham Green and Duncan Place, as well as the renovation work at Bell Farm, which some of us went to see yesterday, which was really impressive, as well as a range of smaller pieces of work outlined in the report, which will all seek to increase affordable housing in the city. Also, for the team's considerable efforts to work hard to bring the construction costs of Passive House down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Pauline, and I couldn't agree with you more. This is an absolutely fantastic report and is exactly what the city needs. And in fact, we need more than is even included in here, but it's great to see this coming through. Sophie, do you want to say anything at this point? I think you should.
No, except for to say thank you. It's been such a great privilege leading the Housing Delivery Programme, and yeah, I'm here for any sort of detailed questions on the report.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I see who'd like to speak on this then? Councillor Eyre, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Ordnance Lane received planning permission in June 2022. By now, it would have been expected to have delivered already 85 homes and 51 affordable homes. It's now confirmed in this paper that no homes are likely to be delivered in this council. The changes made have the potential to add an extra 50 affordable, albeit smaller units, at a significant cost to the council. HRA borrowing has increased from a forecast £7 million to nearer £15 million. While social rent is forecast to cover the interest on this borrowing, that level of debt will sit with the HRA for the next 25 years and beyond. This is despite eye-watering additional investment of £12 million from Right to Buy and £2 million from the Mayor. That's a total cost of £29 million for 50 additional affordable units, £580,000 per home, not yet even started yet. And this is not necessarily delivering any additional affordable units. When you net off the affordable homes lost by Right to Buy to fund the project, it will probably be possible to count on one hand the number of additional affordable homes you've provided. And it's actually questionable how many of these are actually truly affordable. These figures suggest that people would be required to raise an average of £152,000 for a low percentage share of these. Even for those able to raise a mortgage 5 times the average salary in York, on top of that mortgage, they will be expected to find a further £500 per month on top of their mortgage in rent. That's hardly what most people would call an affordable home. Elsewhere on the report, we see the updates on Duncan Place and Burnham. I'm grateful to officers for confirmation since the last meeting that build costs on both of these schemes remain in line with the original budget. The decision of this executive, therefore, to sell those market homes for almost 20% above obscene was a political choice, not an inherited one. Figures show this will overachieve forecast income by several £1 million. This could have been used to increase the affordability ratio on either site. Failure to do so has not only placed these homes out of the reach of so many residents, but has inflated the costs for all those seeking the shared ownership route and directly fuels the housing boom and subsequent affordability crisis in the city.
I have to say, Councillor Eyre, I'm really disappointed that you cannot see the positives in this paper that have been so worked on so hard by the team, and they are delivering an amazing amount of affordable housing for our city, something that your administration had no interest in whatsoever, and we have been saddled with dealing with that. Ordnance Lane is a fantastic example of putting truly affordable housing into our city. People are absolutely calling out for it. So I will not take that. Councillor Pavlovic, please carry on.
Thank you, Chair. And this is, as a councillor, there are many more challenging days, as we heard during the urgent business item that we heard first. And then there are the one few beacons of light, and this report is one of those. I echo in a different agenda item Councillor Webb's statement that I couldn't be prouder to be presenting this paper to executive. But if you'll indulge me even further, Chair, I just want to say that none of this would have been possible without the work of Sophie and Sophie's team. The dedication that she, in particular in leading that team and leading her team, is, I think, an example of the commitment and the diligence above and beyond what you would expect from officers. As I can attest to the late night emails that I get from both Pauline and from Sophie, just how committed to this project they are. And therefore, I do find it incredibly sad that on such a positive agenda item that Nigel can only be churlish, particularly after he was so positive about the other agenda items, but still. To be able to start to deliver 100% affordable housing did involve redesign, did involve a lot more work, and the work that the officers put into creating viable schemes that are passive house, that will save money for our residents, and that will make their energy bills minimal, should not be underestimated. And in respect of Duncan, I can well imagine the headlines and the leaflets that would have been created had we made a different decision to discount those market sales from the Lib Dem about financial management. So what we have here is not only Ordnance Lane, not only Willow House, but we have Lowfield, we have Manor, we have Askham, that aren't aspirations as the previous, actually two administrations brought forward. I remember the housing delivery programme was in the 2015 to 19 administration, and it was then a 5-year plan with no actual delivery attached to it. This is delivery. It's delivering the most amount of affordable housing in a generation in York. And I won't hear that we have not done enough. We have done more and faster and costed programme than any administration has in living memory. So I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder of Sophie and Sophie's team. And through gritted teeth, I wish her the very best of luck moving forward. Our loss is another housing association's very great gain. She has all of our thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Pavlovic, and I couldn't agree more. And Sophie, you've been instrumental in helping us to get to this point of delivering 100% truly affordable housing on council-owned land. And as I have said many a time to many a person, if we are not doing that, I don't know who else is, and we never would have agreed to the market sale that the Liberal Democrats did, that have saddled us with a lot of problems over the years. It's our land. We should be delivering housing for the city, for the people that need it the most, those 1,600 people that sit on our housing list. So thank you very much for that. And I draw your attention to the recommendations, which are numerous, on page 222 and 223. So they go through from A to L. So get ready, everybody. Executive at paragraph 9 are asked to approve the award of the construction contract for the development of Ordnance Lane to the successful bidder and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to enter into the contract once finalised. B, recommend to full council a construction and delivery budget totalling 37.9 million, which includes HRA borrowing totaling up to 13 million. C, Hospital Fields road site is appropriated from the general fund into the HRA for 1.85 million as per independent RICS valuation. D, agree to the application to Homes England for funding to deliver the shared ownership properties on Ordnance Lane and accept, if successful, and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to enter into any resulting grant funding agreements. E, agree the proposed tenure mix of 100% affordable housing split between 50 social rent homes and 51 shared ownership homes on Ordnance Lane. And F, agree to utilise the existing project budget to procure a contractor to operate under a pre-contract services agreement to collaboratively design Willow House to RE4 and price the design to enable a full business case in respect of the development of Willow House to be presented to the executive for approval and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting pre-contract services agreement. G, agree to the procurement of an enabling contractor for Willow House to prepare the site for development utilising North Yorkshire Combined Authority brownfield funding to deliver this work and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting contract. H, agree to the procurement of a contractor to work collaboratively to design Lowfield A to RE4 and price this design to enable a full business case to be presented to executive for approval and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into resulting design contract. I, agree to the procurement of a multidisciplinary design team to lead the design work on the former Manor School site and to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting contract. J, pending successful bid for the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority Brownfield Fund to agree to the development of designs and submission of a planning application for 100% affordable on the former Manor School site. And K, delegate authority for the future allocation of Neighbourhood Improvement Programme funding to the Director of Housing and Communities in consultation with Executive Member for Housing, Planning and Community Safety to support projects such as those outlined in Walmgate improvement proposals, another fantastic scheme that our community is much needed and ignored for far too long. The HDP will support the creation of good quality spaces whilst the NIP, that's Neighbourhood Improvement Programme, will improve existing spaces through targeted investment. And L, agree the revised red line boundary for the Willow House development as shown in Annex B. Right, finished, marvellous, well done everybody. So can I, no, can I see it, those who are in favour of recommendations A to L, please? Right, those are approved. That is very exciting. So please go forward and deliver for us and for the residents of York. Thank you very much. And thanks for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Right, very good. Number 11 on our agenda is local flood risk management strategy. And we have Dave Atkinson here with us, and I am much remiss, I'm really sorry. Mark, have you got a name tag there, Mark? You turn it round for me, thank you. They're not double-sided, no, thank you. So Mark is our flood risk manager and has joined us tonight to speak as well. So who's starting?
I'll just do a brief
please go ahead.
introduction, Chair. I'll try and not to go through all 86 pages of the local flood risk management strategy, but this is a really positive piece, really good piece of work from the team and partners. And it really sort of seeks to better understand flood risk in York and how we can mitigate that risk. I'll hand over to Mark to go through the detail of the report.
Thank you very much. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible, albeit it's a very important issue. So I think I came a few weeks ago, and just say the local flood risk management strategy is required through the Flood and Water Management Act. We're required as CYC to produce one, develop, maintain, apply, and monitor a local flood risk strategy. So obviously monitoring is the key one in this one, because we've already had one produced previously in 2014, but there's obviously been some subsequent changes, such as the York FAS, and other highlights such as the USWEM project, which is looking a government-funded but York CYC/NYC-led project to slow the flow in the upper catchment and protect York, because we're at the bottom of the whole catchment and we take all the water. So that's a really innovative strategy to look at how we can deliver upstream catchment management. So there's been quite a lot of change. So this is obviously an opportunity for us, required by law, but obviously opportunity to update it and reflect some of those changes. This report is in section 9. I was going to say, just wanted to clarify it. Point 5 in the exec summary, and if I direct you to that, suggests that the exec are approving the LFRMS. It's just to be clear, in section 9 of the report, it actually says, and this is brought to exec to ask for exec to delegate powers to the Director for Environmental and Regulatory Services to commence public consultation. So this report is very much for you to cast your eye over and make sure you're happy with it before it goes to public consultation for a number of weeks thereafter. So yeah, we've obviously internally consulted with Environment Agency, Yorkshire Water, internal drainage boards, all key players in the flood risk world, because obviously the networks, the water network doesn't respect boundaries, organisational. So we're all part of a much bigger picture. So yeah, discussed it with some of our access team as well. So it looks like we're going to be doing a 12-week consultation. That's just to give everyone the opportunity to be able to access groups, because obviously flooding impacts particularly on, has a particular impact on those that are disabled and aged, for example, who can't get out of their homes with flooding. So we need to really know what impacts and what strategies and practicalities we need to put in place to protect our residents across the board. So that's a very inclusive strategy in that respect. So we're going to go out for consultation, and we'll try and broaden it. We're going to libraries, have available the strategy and questionnaires in libraries, online, the West offices, and then obviously make ourselves available either verbally on the phone or through groups to allow for that conversation to happen, really, to then bring it back at a future after 12 weeks, to bring it back to exec to cast our eye over any changes and then make sure it's reflective of the local community as much as it is what we as officers believe.
Thank you very much, Mark. And it sounds like there's an awful lot of work gone into this already, and there is a lot more to come. So can I see who would like to speak on this? Please go ahead, Councillor Kent. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank Mark and the whole team for a huge amount of work that's already gone into this. Flooding is incredibly important for York. It's shaped the city over many centuries, and it's had significant impact over the last 20 years. We're no stranger to that. And Mark's mentioned the great work that's happening in USWEM upstream and the innovative measures, natural flood management measures in terms of planting and dam building, which I really hope is going to make a huge difference to us downstream. And I'm very excited to see the outcome of that, which is looking very promising. But it would be remiss of us not to note that we've had more flood events in the last 20 years than ever before, and they're increasing and likely to increase with changing climate and changing weather patterns. So this is really serious, it's really important, and I really welcome the large amount of consultation that's already gone on with partners that Mark's been doing, who've helped shape bits of it, and really encourage everybody to feedback over the next 12 weeks, and that we can try and reach out to as many people who are affected by this as possible. There are all sorts of elements of it, including what each of us can do in our own communities. So I recommend it to you for consultation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kent. And yeah, I couldn't agree more that this is really important to our residents, as Mark outlined, those people that are directly affected by flooding, and how we make sure that we understand what they will need in a flooding event and how to work with them. And I'm just thinking that councillors likely are a good way of getting this out to consultees as well, to hear from those communities who are most heavily affected. So it would be great to have this circulated round to all 47 councillors as it goes out for consultation, so they can promote that for you. So in that case then, everybody, I bring you to page 299, paragraph 9, where the recommendation there is that executive delegates authority to the Director of Environmental and Regulatory Services to commence public consultation as referenced in the report. So can I see those in favour? So that is unanimously approved to go out for consultation. So please go ahead and do that. And thank you for joining us today and being patient as well. We've been here a while now. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Thank you. Item number 12 then is Park and Ride site improvements and new bus service contract, another exciting and much welcomed development. So we have Tom Horner here, who is head of, I can't read that from here.
Active and Sustainable Transport.
Oh, well done. So Head of Active and Sustainable Transport. And we've got Gary Taylor, who's Director of City Development, who's going to introduce this to the paper. Are you going ahead, Tom? Are you?
I can. Yes, I'll keep it quick. We've got a busy agenda, haven't we? So, as you'll all be aware, we've got one of the most successful park and rides in the country in York, and I'm very proud of that. And the measures in this report sort of aim to take that to the next level so that we can be unequivocally the best. We've got £4.25 million worth of site improvements to allocate funding to. This has come through the Council's bus service improvement plan and from the Mayor's bus grant this year. The improvements we've got in there, there's some really exciting new innovations, including overnight parking areas. We're going to put a new building in at Grimston Bar to completely refresh the facilities there and do a major refurbishment at Rawcliffe Bar. That will enable us to put, amongst other things, 2 new changing places facilities in and offer a vastly improved passenger experience. We've got improvements to accessibility, electric vehicle charging, cycle parking, car clubs to really sort of bring a multimodal hub type feel to the sites too. I'd just like to thank my team and the communications colleagues as well for the consultation work that's been undertaken. So we've been out to each site to talk through the proposals with existing users on a Saturday, on a weekday, and done an online consultation, which has been really positive. So some real prospect for us to grow patronage and reduce congestion off the back of these proposals, and they complement the recently introduced service extensions that we put in July with First Group. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the contract itself for the operation of the bus services themselves and the site management. That's currently with First Group. The contract expires at the back end of January 2026. We're just going to propose an extension of 2 years up to the maximum 10-year period for public service contracts with that one, so that we can complete conversations with the Mayoral Combined Authority. There's a lot of work going on with colleagues there around the bus network review, how the Mayor will start to enact his public transport powers. So we just want to conclude those before we bring a more long-term contract that can bring in some capital investment from operators to the city. So in a nutshell, that's where we are, and the recommendations sort of reflect our ability to crack on and get some work on the ground.
Thank you, Tom, and it's really good to hear about the developments and the progress that has been made at the Park and Ride. It's a really good example of public transport, sustainable transport in action. Gary, do you want to say anything, or are you happy just to wait to questions?
Happy to wait to questions.
Okay, thank you. Can I see those who'd like to speak on this item then, please? So, Councillor Revilius, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying happy birthday to our Park and Ride, because it's 35 years since it was first formally opened in 1990 with Askham Bar Park and Ride. And that is thanks to the foresight and the commitment to sustainable and affordable travel of the then Labour administration, and Councillor Dave Merritt was the exec member for transport at that time. So I think that legacy is a really wonderful thing. And that has resulted in York having the largest park and ride in the UK. We've got nearly 5,000 parking spaces around the outside of our city across 6 different sites now. And it's one of the most successful in the country, with around 3.8 million journeys in 2024. So it's a really, really great thing and an important part of the sustainable travel that we have. But we can also see that it's a fantastic asset that could do even more. And that's what this investment is about. It's going to make it work harder for us and for the city. And it's going to improve the passenger experience and make it more of a multimodal experience. So the proposals have received really strong positive support in the public consultation, and I'd really like to congratulate the team who did that public consultation. It was very extensive, and over 1,000 people fed back on those proposals and shaped what we see in front of us. Definitely a key part of it is to create more integrated transport hubs so that it can be useful to a wider range of people and connect a greater diversity of places and locations. So the overnight parking has been a really, really strong ask, and that will tie in with those extended park and ride hours that we've already implemented very nicely. More EV charging to really extend that offer. And then having things like the availability of car club cars there, or buses that go onward to other places, having a more accessible offer, those changing places toilets, accessible EV charging, more spacious blue badge parking. So all of those things will just make it more useful to lots of people. And that supports our commitment to enabling people to choose sustainable travel options and to reduce congestion in the city centre. The park and ride contract is a pragmatic decision, really, to enable the combined authority to complete its bus network review and then subsequently enter into a park and ride contract that responds to that review and dovetails with any network changes. So in the meantime, it means that we'll have a reliable continuation of the park and ride service. Absolutely huge thanks to Tom and the team for all the work that's gone into putting together those park and ride improvements. You know, it's really great to have seen that come together and to see that it really reflects what people are asking for. It's much wanted by residents, businesses, communities, and visitors, and it'll make a tremendous difference and give people more sustainable travel options. So let's bring it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Revilius. 35 years old. How about that? Councillor Dave Merritt. Okay, all right. So in that case, then, for everybody, the recommendations are on page 414. At paragraph 12, and Executive is asked to approve £4 million of BSIP1 funding and £250,000 of allocated York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority bus grant funding to deliver park and ride site improvements as outlined in Annex A. To delegate authority to the Director of City Development in consultation with Director of Governance and Head of Procurement to implement the proposed park and ride site infrastructure improvements and to carry out any required procurement processes and to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting contract. 3, delegate authority to the Director of City Development in consultation with the Chief Finance Officer and Director of Governance to explore and implement further income opportunities associated with park and ride, including setting fees for overnight parking. And 4, delegate authority to the Director of City Development in consultation with Director of Governance and Head of Procurement to agree an extension to the existing park and ride contract and any associated leases of not more than 2 years duration, to take such steps as are necessary to enter into the resulting variation and extension agreement and lease extensions. You are all making me work hard for my money tonight, aren't you? So can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations, please? So those are approved unanimously as well. And thank you very much for joining us this evening and everything you and your teams are doing. And we really appreciate the developments in Park and Ride, particularly over the last couple of years. Thanks, Tom. Thanks a lot. Right, next item then. Item number 13 on the agenda is £500,000 Park Investment Fund, another hugely exciting paper to bring through. Scheme approval. So we have a lot of people, goodness gracious, we've got Dave Mee, we've got Ian Holt, who's Head of Environmental Services, and we've got Dave Atkinson back again. Very busy tonight, Dave. So who's going to start on this one? Ian, off you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, councillors. This is the second report of two of the 500k Parks Investment Fund. This report outlines how we've applied the criteria that was approved in the previous report to the schemes across the city, and which schemes have met that criteria for the investment. In addition to the £500,000 capital investment, there's also Section 106 and third parties money that we're using to further increase that spend across our parks and play areas, which takes currently to around 750k, with further Section 106 money planned to take that over to over 900k. Officers have worked over the summer to apply that criteria. We've also done a recruitment exercise to bring in a dedicated project resource, which starts on the 1st of November, and some work has already begun in terms of procurements and contracts. So we're here this evening to ask Executive to agree the schemes detailed in paragraph 26 and Annex 1 of the report. Note the schemes detailed in paragraph 28 and Annex 1, which needs some further work, for us to bring a follow-up report next year to monitor progress.
Great, thank you. Looks marvellous. Who would like to speak on this item? Then please, Councillor Eyre, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to speak in support of investment in our parks and play areas, and I welcome this report correcting previous assertions about the history of recent park investment. For too long, parks have relied on either Section 106 funding or parish councils as their only source of investment. I was proud, therefore, as exec member, to introduce the first capital allocation for parks improvement in the last administration. This further investment is equally welcome, and it will become more important than ever as we progress the local plan that we have a coherent strategy for how we deal with our parks and leisure facilities. I reiterate my previous comments to Executive about the urgent need, for example, to update our sport and active leisure strategy. Though I've been made aware today we appear to be reducing capacity in that hugely important area. People will always take issue with how funding is allocated. The Labour group disagreed with how we allocated it. Many in our group disagree with how you're doing it. The public speaker pointed out earlier that other issues and shows how levels with high deprivation will still miss out. This has been rehearsed at scrutiny, and I won't go further into that today. Suffice to say, sometimes by-elections do send a message. I welcome the long overdue investment into Hull Road Park. Local residents, and noticeably Andrew Mortimer, have tirelessly championed Hull Road Park since Labour took away their park keepers in 2013. And that, by the way, was also Councillor Dave Merritt. It's disappointing that the pavilion is still only being looked at. Residents and campaigners have been calling for improvements to it for years, and the need is obvious, so we would ask you to get on with that. The £500,000 investment fund will bring improvements right across the city, from Aiken Green to Chesney's Field, Roundtree Park, Crombie Avenue, and many others, and we welcome that. Parks and play areas are vital spaces for families, children, older people, and anyone who wants to enjoy the outdoors. They improve well-being and help make our city greener and provide access to green spaces for those without gardens.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Kent, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank officers, and particularly Dave Mee, who I was hoping was going to say something this evening, because he's done so much work over the summer, as has the whole team, but it's largely down to Dave. I think, is that fair to say to you, in terms of working through this report? And it's a fantastic report. Before I say any more, I do want to address the measures or the aspects raised by Councillor Eyre and by our public speaker. This has been, I think this is extraordinary. This has gone through 2 scrutiny meetings from budget approval. It's had the selection of criteria, and then it's had the selection of schemes in the space, and the appointment of a project officer, project manager, in the space of 6 months, which anyone in public sector and council work knows is a very quick turnaround. And at every stage, it has been fed into, and fed into well, to the extent that your own members, Councillor Eyre, were saying at the last scrutiny meeting, one of them said this was the best report he'd ever seen from the council and fully applauded it. Councillor Healy. So I reject any accusation that this hasn't been done well or thoroughly. I reject that anything's been ignored. The proposed schemes, we're very clear right from the beginning that what we were focusing on was areas of multiple deprivation. That's number one. That's the highest weighting, and that's been done throughout. Then it's replacing play equipment over 20 years old. Then it's key infrastructure, and equal fourth weight, but its fourth weight went to Green Flag Award or availability of external funds. So I also want to stress that the increase of the number of green flag parks in this city was a manifesto promise of ours. It's in the council plan. It's not suddenly been concocted from anywhere. People elected us on the back of our manifesto, and this was part of it. And here we are doing it. So I think it's had thorough scrutiny. It's had a huge mandate, and I'm really excited to go and deliver it. I know there's already action happening. Some of these are already things that are already taking place. And I also want to thank the many volunteers who work in our parks. The Big Community Challenge started this week, and they're out in Hull Road Park building planters, which is only going to boost the beauty of our parks. In specific reference to Arran Place or King George V Field, whichever way you refer to it, it is on the list. It was on the list at the scrutiny meeting. It's there because it needs further assessment, because the accessibility will need structural and engineering input and is likely to be very expensive. I would love to be able to do everything, but why do people need to pull down stuff because we haven't done everything when we're doing a huge amount of good? This is a really fantastic piece of work. It's the biggest investment in parks and open spaces in a generation. It knocks spots off anything that's happened in the last 20 years, and I'm really proud and urge everyone to celebrate it rather than pull holes in things for no reason. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Kent. Dave, do you want to say anything at all? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the feedback. I think I agree. It is a fantastic investment. So, however the money's been managed, that's really welcome from my side of the table. The report for me clearly recognised that there are things we can do now, and that's why there's two sets of recommendations. There are further projects that, in the time available, were not feasible to I didn't feel comfortable recommending to you that they should go forward because the finances around them, whether it be engineering or structural, were too uncertain. So that's why we have the two-phased recommendation. It clearly recognises there's work to do, and we're getting on and we will do it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave. Very sensible approach. And I know there's been an awful lot of thought gone into the planning of how we get this done in the time frame and the finance that's available, which of course is the appropriate way of moving forward, the sensible way of moving forward, but hugely exciting at the same time. So recommendations they're on page 452 at paragraph 16, and members are recommended to agree the schemes detailed in paragraph 26 and annex 1, 2, note the schemes detailed in paragraph 28 and annex 1, and 3, request a follow-up report for July 2026. So please, can I see those in favour of all of those recommendations? Those are approved unanimously. Let's go forth and improve our parks. Thank you very much. Well done. Thank you. Right. So next item, final item. Goodness gracious, we've made it, people. Item number 14 on the agenda is Household Waste Recycling Centre operations, and I perhaps should say last but not least, right?
100%.
So we've got Dave again and we've got Ian, so please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report outlines some of the challenges that we've currently got around the operating of Hazel Court HWRC. As you'll know, we have two HWRCs within the city, one at Hazel Court and one at Copmanthorpe. Since the Hazel Court HWRC opened in 2006, there's been considerable build-up in terms of business, which is obviously welcome to the city. But that has obviously increased traffic flow up and down James Street and around the Hazel Court operating centres and businesses there. There's also been, with that traffic build-up, that's brought cause for concern in terms of safety of all road users and pedestrians. We are proposing that we introduce, to ease the traffic around Hazel Court and James Street, a booking system that will obviously remain accessible for our residents, but only for the Hazel Court HWRC, we're proposing that Cowthorpe would remain free to open to attend at any point without the need for booking. Officers have done work and there's some annexes to support the report in terms of the number of visits, the heat maps that are in there. Actually, we've done a recent piece of work in terms of non-residents and residents that visit our HWRCs to confirm our assumptions in terms of who are using and visiting the HWRC. So we're asking the executive for us to introduce a booking system for Hazel Court only, one similar to that we worked in the COVID period, so it's not totally new. It's one that officers have used before. Trial that for 12 months and we'll monitor success and satisfaction through customer feedback.
Great, thank you very much, Ian. Dave, would you like to say something? Please go ahead.
Just a really final point, just to reinforce that the opportunity for residents won't diminish. There won't be reduced opportunity. The purpose of the booking system is to spread the demand out through the day and take the peak, which is in the morning and the middle of the day.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and it's really important, isn't it, to maximise the number of people that can get through the HWRC, the Household Waste Recycling Centre, because it has been a challenge for folks that have their businesses or just travelling around the area. It's not in the best place at all, is it, in that respect? And actually, I think that's been another part of the work, hasn't it?
That's yeah, within the report we do acknowledge that further and longer term ambitions, we need to look at actually the location of the HWRC to ensure its suitability really. Yeah. But obviously that's quite a long term and it would take a significant investment.
Great, thank you very much. Can I see those who'd like to speak? Please go ahead, Councillor Eyre, then thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, residents in York are rightly frustrated that once again they're being asked to deal with the consequences of these poor decisions on waste and recycling. The problem with this report is that it seeks to place the issue entirely out of context and doesn't consider all the possible alternatives. The roots of these issues began with the last Labour administration and that decision to close Beckfield Tip, which was again Councillor Merritt, as he seems to be the popular voice in there that made that decision. That it deliberately led to an increased demand on the remaining sites and poor access to waste facilities for those in the west of the city. Despite this, the system has previously been managed well, with the exception of severe fluctuation in demand, as mentioned during COVID. This proposed booking system is a reaction to a problem that you've created for yourselves. What the paper glosses over is that since May 2023, the successive policies of this administration have driven more and more traffic to Hazel Court, directly creating the problems we see now. You cut the opening hours from 7 PM to 6 PM and close the site altogether on Wednesdays. Those cuts reduce capacity just as demand was going up due to your deeply unpopular green bin tax, forcing more residents to use the recycling centres instead of their curbside collections. So now, with fewer hours and more visitors, Cal surprise, queues have built up. Councillor Kent was adamant when introducing the new green bin tax that people were free to avoid the tax by taking their green waste to the household waste recycling centres. Now you seem surprised that this has happened. Contrary to tenuous attempts to attribute this to businesses that have been open almost a decade, the paper is clear. Usage at Cowthorpe is up a staggering 34% and Hazel Court 25% since this administration took control. There is no analysis here of the environmental impact of this modal shift, nor is there any analysis of the parallel growth in fly tipping. A review of the operation of our waste sites is much needed, but this is just a sticking plaster to a self-inflicted wound.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. From the looks I was getting, I'm not sure everybody agrees with your data assessment or information. Ian, have you got any technical aspects that you'd like to correct before we move into, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think what the data is showing officers is that there's almost little but more often visits being done to the HWRCs. Cowthorpe has seen an increase in visits. I mean, that's some of the work that we have done to navigate, try and encourage our residents to visit Cowthorpe opposed to Hazel Court and check during busy periods. Actually, some of the waste materials have reduced, some have increased, depending what it is, and there's different reasons for that. So yeah, I mean, I have to go away and take a look at that in a lot more detail.
Thank you. Yeah, so not necessarily an accurate picture being painted over there. Councillor Kent, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if I could just follow up from what Ian said there. So I fundamentally reject what Councillor Ayres says. As Ian said, the numbers of visits have gone up at both sites, but the volume at Hazel Court has gone down of waste, and the volume of waste at Southwark has gone up by 5% and 8% in the last 2 years, year on year. So it was doing exactly what we asked people to do, which is to look at, see where there are busy periods and to take your waste to Southwark if it was busy at Hazel Court. So our messaging worked. The whole point of this is that it didn't work well enough. But the key cause of this is that too many people are going to the tip too often, and not necessarily with full cars. We've got more people going, but with less waste. And so what this is aimed to do, and that started way before the green waste subscription charge was brought in. We met with businesses in Hazel Court who were all of them of the view that this has been a problem at peak times for more than 2 years, or a year and a half since we've had the green waste charge introduced, that it's not all the time. Many people will say, well, when I go, it's fine, I don't have to wait. But at peak times, when it is congested, it's really bad. And it's that we're trying to reduce and smooth over. It's about having a smooth flow, an easy, pleasant, if you can, if this is your thing, a trip to the tip. In terms of aligning, what we did was we aligned opening hours and opening times with North Yorkshire. We're a site in the middle of North Yorkshire. We've aligned with them. We've made a really useful savings in terms of propping our council up and enabling us to do many good things for the city with a green subscription charge, which has gone incredibly well. And none of this is necessarily causing any of the problems which pre-existed. So I also just briefly want to say that fly tipping across the country has gone up, but York is considerably less than anywhere else in its percentage increase. It's considerably less than comparable cities of Chester, Bath or Oxford, and it's much less than Leeds and surrounding cities in North Yorkshire. So it doesn't add up, what you're saying, I'm afraid, Councillor Ayre. On the positive side for this, not only do the businesses welcome this and urge us to take action on it, but other local authorities who've implemented this have said that people have actually, despite after getting used to it, broadly been positive about it. And anecdotally, there are potentially better recycling rates because people think more about waste. And that's the other point I want to make, that the idea that we should just, as a council, exist to take everybody's rubbish at any time, all the time, is the wrong way to think about waste. We all need to think about waste as a resource. There is nowhere to throw anything away. This all has value. We need to think about what we're doing, what we're buying. Is it single use? How are we going to repair it? How are we going to reuse it? And if we can't, as a final resort, how are we going to dispose of it? And letting people think about going to the tip and maybe thinking, have I got a car full? Should I look at whether my neighbour needs me to take something as well? So go through street WhatsApp groups and say, I'm going to book a place at the tip. Can I take anything for you? But really think about it. Do I need to throw this away? Because we cannot keep throwing stuff away. The tip isn't there to just suck up everything that we just can't be bothered to think about. It's there to, as a last resort, dispose of stuff that can't be disposed of any other way. This is going to improve the flow. It's going to reduce emissions from congestion and people sitting in queues. It's going to smooth the flow, as Dave said, and mean that everybody can get there without queuing, I hope, after an initial sort of acclimatisation. And I think it's a good solution to a problem that has existed for many years.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kent. Well said. I totally agree with you. Right, page 485 then. We're nearly there, everybody. Paragraph 13. Executive member or executive is recommended to approve the introduction of an accessible, flexible online booking system for Hazel Court only, initially for 12 months, and monitor traffic congestion and success through customer satisfaction. This will also require an option for residents to phone and book a slot to ensure we offer an accessible service to all. 2 is agree that Southwark will operate without a booking system in place and remain as an open to attend. 3, to note a number of options will be considered during the transition to a booking system that will give residents that opportunity to dispose of limited streams, for example, garden waste, wood, at local sites. And 4, to note the longer term options for household waste recycling centres in York are being explored. Can I see those who are in favour of all of those recommendations? So those are approved unanimously as well. I think that's very good news for everybody, and I look forward to seeing implemented. So thank you for sticking with us tonight, and for joining us, and thanks for all the work you're doing too. Thanks a lot. See you. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. We have already done urgent business, and there is no other urgent business. So that brings us to the end of today's executive meeting. I thank everybody for joining us, and the meeting is closed.